Hey, it's Krins. Heroes of Might and Magic 7 is not exactly a new game, but I had the craving to play it the other day, and I felt like making a video about it. Strap yourself in, this is gonna be a long one. I have always had a love for the Heroes of Might and Magic franchise, and I played 2, 3, and 5 to a level that some would consider way too much. For whatever reason, I never really got into number 6, and the 4th one is just a fuzzy memory. I have played 7 on and off again for a long time, just choosing to play a scenario or two and then leaving it again. Whenever I played Heroes of Might and Magic any version, I never really get into the main story of the game. For whatever reason, it just plays out in a way that I don't enjoy, so most of my focus is always on the scenarios, the custom maps, and that's going to be the focus of this video. The factions you can play are Haven, Stronghold, Academy, Necropolis, Sylvan, Dungeon, and Fortress. One faction you may notice is missing is Inferno. Unfortunately, Inferno is not currently available in Hero 7, but you may recruit some very Inferno-esque mobs that are neutral across the map. The actual heroes are a bit more well-rounded now, but they're also a little toned down. They don't get as crazy powerful early on anymore, but there is some cheese you can still employ if you want to get really strong early on. When you level up, you get skill points that you can distribute differently depending on which hero you have. You have the basic level, and in that basic level then you can choose one special ability. You can choose more than one as you level up, of course, but you need to choose one first. And then you get the advanced level, and you have 2 options there. And then the expert level where you have only the one option, so it's not much of an option really. After that, each hero has 3 ultimate ability options, one of which is always their racial or faction ability. You can now have governor abilities. For example, you can increase certain creature growth, or double ore and wood growth around that city. You can assign a hero to each city to be that city's governor. That means that you have to juggle choosing between making your hero better in combat or a better governor, which is pretty cool. For example, my favorite and arguably the best starting hero Casper can under the right circumstances get to level 3 in day 1. All it takes is 1 monolith and 1 chest outside the starting town, which is both pretty common. This means that you can choose Town Planner in the second row of the economics skill tree from day 1. That lets you build 2 buildings every day. An extremely powerful ability if you have the resources to back it up. This means, for instance, that you can get vampires, a very strong troop, at the end of week 1. The drawback is that Casper is a very boring hero in combat. One of his ultimate abilities is his warfare ability, so that his war machines become god mode. You go economics, warfare, and necromancy, and now you have to be really high level before you can even start working on your magic skills. So often when I play Casper, I end up just doing normal attacks with him rather than casting spells, which makes him less fun than he would normally be, even though he is extremely good. I really like how undead towns look. They're very beautiful, and when you build them you have to make some tough choices. For example, the highest tier creature dwellings can only be of one type, so you have to choose between bone dragons and grim riders, as well as their upgraded versions of course. Usually one type is clearly better than the other, but for some factions it is a little bit more balanced. You can use multiple schools of magic per faction, but usually one is heavy favored, and for undead that is dark magic. Dark magic is kind of cool and has good utility spells, including one of the best second level spells in the game, Face of Fear. This spell makes it so the victim of your attacks won't retaliate, and if you have the improved version, it won't retaliate to any attacks at all for 2 rounds. It also lowers the target's morale. You can really shut down the enemy with this fairly early spell. From my favorite faction, the Undead, to my least favorite one, Fortress. Fortress has red dragons, fire giants, dwarves, and hamsters? They also have these cool Valkyries, so what could possibly be wrong? Well, their racial skill revolves around runes, putting runes on the ground with different effects, such as splitting damage between troops, so you can put a tank troop next to a squishy ranged one, and they split all incoming damage. While this is all fine and dandy in theory, in practice it becomes quite tedious, As you get more and more runes, the more powerful you become. Having to place or skip 7 runes each combat round makes the fight, even the quick ones, take so much longer. It makes me quit and play another race quicker than you can say killer hamsters with crossbows. The spell school of choice for Fortress is Fire Magic, which is really cool, but it's not the best. Armageddon is really a shell of its former self in this game. There are some good buffs like Inner Fire and decent damage spells, but overall it's far from the best spell school in the game. The next faction is Dungeon. Like previous versions of the game, they tend to be quite weak early and exceptionally powerful later, with the tipping point usually being around the time they get Black Dragons. You can get an artifact merchant early in the game, but often you will be too resource starved to be able to buy some really cool artifacts until later on. Their preferred school is Prime Magic. My favorite hero here is Scimitar. He, like the faction in general, is kinda weak early and gets really strong later. He is also a very good example to show the power of Prime Magic. Prime Magic scales very hard with difficulty and is very strong on higher difficulties, and the buffs become stronger the stronger troops you have. Implosion, for example, does a percentage of the target stack in damage. This can go over 50%, and with the right skills it can crit. This means that you can one-shot a creature stack, any creature stack, even if it's in the thousands. On the flip side, doing 50% damage to 2 skeletons, that's not very powerful. The ultimate ability in Prime Magic is what makes it really good. It lets you get a second combat round with your hero after casting a Prime spell. The second spell cast is weaker, however for some spells this doesn't really matter. It seems like an oversight, but hero attacks and artifact uses do full damage when doing them after a Prime spell. Prime Magic works really well with Dark Magic as a second school of magic. For example, Implosion plus hero attack if your hero has Dark Magic. The hero attack if it kills at least one creature and you have the Soul Harvest ability from the first tier in Dark Magic, regains 20 mana. You can use heavy mana cost spells and just get some back while doing some extra damage as well. Or you can cast any Prime spell followed by Face of Fear. The weaker Face of Fear doesn't really matter, as all that's affected is how much it lowers enemy morale. The main effect is still the same thing. The last really cool thing I wanted to mention with Prime Magic is the double teleport. The teleport spell also increases initiative, meaning your troops act earlier in the round. So, if you have 2 big stacks of normally underperforming slow troops, you can teleport them in early and attack with them before the enemy. Next up is Stronghold Orcs, Wyverns and such. They specialize in air magic, which is extremely powerful. The air magic ultimate does damage to the troops around the target of your attacks, and this includes hero attacks as well. If your hero levels up faster relative to your troop strength, this splash damage can be much greater than any direct damage you deal. Air magic is where you find Chain Lightning, as well as one of the best buffs in the game, Lightning Reflexes, which allows your troops to attack twice. Their unique skill tree is called Blood Rage, and it rewards your troops with buffs and damage the more aggressive you are. If you defend and wait a lot, it will dissipate. I think it's a really cool mechanic, even though it doesn't fit my more defensive playstyle. Academy, or the Wizards as I like to call them, have many different spellcasters specializing in different schools, but they are the only ones with water magic, so let's talk about that. Water magic has some cool defensive buffs, and the top tier spell, Tsunami, is a really good damage plus knockback on all enemy troops. It's not my favorite school of magic, but it's pretty good. I feel the need to mention my favorite hero here, Solmir, who starts knowing the Chain Lightning spell. I don't think I need to explain why I like that. Haven, which is humans and angels and such, with their holy spells, their healing, the resurrecting and the like. Pretty much what you would expect if you played previous versions of the game. Angels are one of my favorite troops in the game with their ability to resurrect. Their unique skill tree is all based around good morale and bonuses from good morale. At high levels, it becomes almost as if your troops have 2 combat rounds each instead of 1. The last faction is Sylvan. tree-hugging elves and sprites with the green dragon, the most boring of dragons. It's kind of a big lizard, really. They specialize in earth magic, which has one of my favorite spells in the game, Poison Cloud. It's a huge area damage spell that grows for every combat round, and it looks cool as heck too. Those are the 7 available factions. So some things I really like about this game is the graphics are gorgeous and they feel really immersive. The well-rounded heroes with different interesting paths, and you have to balance different playstyles and skills. Although to be fair, I often find myself falling into some kind of cookie cutter build over and over again. I really like that you can adjust map difficulty and enemy AI separately. This has been a pet peeve of mine in previous games for a long time. Having to start with significantly fewer resources than the enemy was not as fun as just playing a better enemy on an even playing field. So what are some things I'm less enthusiastic about? Well, that enemy AI you can toggle separately. Even at the highest difficulty, it is just too stupid. You aren't guaranteed a win every time, but if you know the map and you get a decent start, it's pretty much a guaranteed win. Enemy AI, even on heroic difficulty, is often too easy. Some heroes can feel lackluster and weak compared to their obviously better counterparts. It can be fun playing with weaker heroes and forcing yourself to play different ways, but still. The artifacts aren't as strong and flavorful as previous versions of the game, and they often just feel like okay upgrades rather than the oh my god, I got a sword of 1,000 truths and now I can do this special thing. All in all, it's a fun game. I play it pretty casually, and I can't see myself getting addicted to it or play it day in and day out. But if you're looking to nerd out with a good fantasy game for an evening or two, it's pretty darn fun. If you enjoyed the video, please click the like button and consider subscribing. I currently have 5 subscribers, so you, yes, you the person watching this right now, can increase that by 20%. How cool would that be? Anyways, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.